This week on Quality Digest Live, we'll talk to Bennie Fowler of the Ford Motor Company about how his company drives quality.
And we'll also find out how you can project work instructions on a part. All that and more when we come back.
This week's sponsor of Quality Digest Live is Olympus, specializing in easy-to-use microimaging and metrology systems that provide the measurement and images you need to make crucial decisions.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for February 22nd, 2013. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest publisher Mike Richman. First up in the news this week, a recently released survey reveals that for manufacturers, the skilled labor shortage is pinching tighter than ever. The report comes from One Voice, a joint federal advocacy program of the National Tooling and Manufacturing Association and the Precision Metal Forming Association. The findings underline the problems that the group's member companies are having in locating good people. 91%, for instance, indicated that they're having severe or moderate problems finding workers. And 69% have a current job opening. Those are pretty big numbers. So to solve the problem, these manufacturers are working more closely with community colleges, vocational schools, industry training centers, and high schools. Overall, survey respondents planned a 10% increase in their workforces in 2013. So the good signs here, there's lots of work available.
Sure.
Educational institutions are being relied upon for those to fill those gaps, and there's a growing awareness of the issue. We in particular have been covering it a lot and talking about it a lot
Sure.
on the show and in QDD. The bad signs, however, is that there are still too few people, especially young people, going into manufacturing. There's an image problem with the industry, as we know, and also there is perhaps at least, a pay gap. And the last point about the pay gap, I think, is a particularly interesting one. Some of these jobs require a lot of experience, technical skills, and higher educational degrees and/or certifications, yet in many cases the entry-level pay is rather pedestrian. It can be $20 an hour or less, depending on where the job is located. So if you're trying to motivate and find good, highly skilled people to enter your field and find open jobs, you can do a lot of things, but if you fail to compensate them adequately, Dirk, these problems are going to tend to linger. I mean, think about that. We saw one job in particular where they wanted a master's level degree. Right. They wanted experience in chemistry, mixing chemicals. They wanted some various certifications, and the job paid $17 an hour in the Northeast.
Wow.
Entry level, $17 an hour. Now, of course, those jobs eventually once you get in, you're going to work up your way up the pay scale probably fairly quickly, but $17 an hour is not a heck of a motivation for a lot of people to go through all that schooling, probably have a lot of debt when you come out, and have to get certifications and have to have experience. I mean, it's not necessarily a surprise.
Yeah, $17 with a master's degree, yeah.
It's not necessarily a surprise that these jobs are open. So we talk a lot about why they're open and STEM education and all these things that we have to do, but manufacturers may have to step up a little bit too and realize if you want
to pay for the talent.
If you want the talent and you need the talent, you may have to raise your pay scale a little bit, entry level coming in.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, okay, for all you math-phobic folks out there being dragged and I suspect possibly screaming into the world of CP and CPK and tacket time and coefficient of variation, my favorite, the square root law of inventory.
Yep.
Well, there is hope for you. Blogger, consultant, and Shingo Award winner Mark Hamill has launched a new web called Lean Math. The purpose is to help those who need to use math as part of their lean efforts. The blog will explain the various terms and how to use them. As Hamill explains, effective lean transformations require some level of math, whether it's the often deceptively simple tacket time calculation, sizing Kanbans, calculating process capability, or anything in between. It's hard to get away from math. There is no such thing as math-free lean, and certainly not math-free Sigma. So effective, as he said, these if you're in Lean or you're in Six Sigma, you're going to need math of some sort.
At least a basic level.
At least a basic level.
Understanding of how to read that stuff.
Now, just to show you what he's talking about, if we go to his website here, we can take a quick scroll and see some of the stuff he's talking about. We can take a look at some of his products here if we can switch over to this. So he's got this is from his blog. You got a inventory turns calculation. We've got 10x ROI.
Yep.
What do you got? A coefficient of variation.
That's a good one.
And you can see there's some formulas. Obviously, he's not just talking about these theoretically. He's giving you the formulas, not just a verbal explanation. Time units, how to convert a cycle time family, and so forth. So if you go to his website, which is what is it? www.leanmath.com.
Yep.
or just leanmath.com. You can take a look at it. It's very useful information. If you don't remember what I just told you, if you just go to the link to the blog, which is underneath the player page, it's called Lean Math. I think that's the very first headline underneath the player. If you click on that, in the very first paragraph of that story, there is a link to leanmath.com. So I suggest you go check it out. Really useful information.
That's right. And all the stories, of course, as always, all the stories that we're going to cover today, we just talked about, and coming up as well. You can find all the story links right below the player page right there. So check them out after the show and check out those stories and find out more.
There you go.
Okay, well, turning now to our feature articles for the week. This week we are proud to bring you the latest installment of our series of pieces from and interviews with many of the top quality professionals at the Ford Motor Company. So in a few moments we're going to be joined by Bennie Fowler, Ford's Group Vice President of Global Quality and New Model Launch. Bennie's latest article, Striving for Perfection at Ford, ran in Thursday's issue of Quality Digest Daily, and it addresses the 4 P's of quality at Ford: product, process, people, and perception. These are topics that we plan to track throughout the year with Ford, so look out for that. We're going to be having other pieces from Ford, right, and other high-ranking members of Ford's team.
We hope to have several throughout the year.
We have had already. You may recall we've had Bennie on the show last year. We had Adrian Vito of Ford on the show, and Dr. Jay Zhao was on the show as well. So also interesting. We have had quality folks, engineers, and we're going to have more of that going forward as the year progresses. Right. So without further ado, I am very pleased to welcome Bennie Fowler of the Ford Motor Company to the show. Bennie, welcome.
Good afternoon, Dirk, and good afternoon, Mike. How are you today?
Oh, pretty good, man. How are you doing?
Fantastic.
Great.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us again. As I mentioned, we had you on the show a few months back in the middle of 2012, and we want to continue the conversation because the article that you wrote that appeared in our newsletter earlier this week, I think was interesting, and I want to kind of jump right into it and talk a little bit about the 4 Ps and how they keep you and the Ford team on track during, as you mentioned, your journey to quality, your quality journey.
Okay, fantastic. Looking forward to the dialogue, so fire away.
Sure. Well, so talk about the 4 Ps. So, and because you use that kind of as a framing device, people, process, product, and perception. So talk a little bit about how that's developed and how you came to that as the framing device, let's say, for quality at Ford.
Well, make no mistake about it, in the car business, it is all about the products and services that you offer. And at Ford, that's certainly the key. So let's just talk a little bit about what customers and how they perceive quality. And when we think about it and when we listen to our customers, first of all, you really want a vehicle that looks great on your driveway. And you want to be proud of the vehicle that you purchase. And certainly when you look at the vehicles that Ford is producing today from a styling perspective, when you look at the recent launches of the Fusion, the MKZ, and maybe even vehicles that we've kind of shown as concepts, the new MKC that was shown at the Detroit Motor Show, as well as the new Atlas pickup truck, this kind of signals what the design language is going to be in the future. You start to think of product and styling as fast becoming a strength of Ford. Secondly, from a technology standpoint, you really have to provide technologies that provide greater benefit to customers using their vehicles today. And examples of that would like my Ford Touch, my Lincoln Touch, just to name a few. And then we're really working on becoming leaders in fuel economy. And when you look at some of the vehicles that we're getting, a host of vehicles over 30 miles per gallon. We're really driving fuel economy with the power of choice, with the engine combinations we have, whether it be EcoBoost, our new hybrid vehicles. We're really starting to drive fuel economy. And then last but certainly not least, the safety is a very important part of what we think our products should have. And, we got a number of vehicles that have been rated by the top safety organizations in the world as some of the best safety picks in terms of our products. Well, that, along with the fact that we have been improving the concerns that are in our products, we think the combination is great.
Well, Benny, one of the things that was interesting to me in your article is obviously you guys have done a lot of work. You've launched a lot of new products or updates to existing products. But one of the things that interests me from a customer service standpoint is not only new product launches and new releases, is you mentioned in the article how pleased you were that since 2006 you have decreased your percent of customer concerns. Now, was that, when you said that, was that in terms of initial quality or concerns in general, or what were we referring to in that? Because I think that's a huge deal to be able, it's a nice thing to put out a nice looking vehicle and one that looks good in your driveway, as you say. It's another thing to be getting, have customer concerns, and the fact that you decrease that, I think, is really important.
Well, it's in terms of warranty. It's in terms of initial quality also, and IQS, and it's also vehicle dependability. And if you saw the recent J.D. Power's survey, it did have the Lincoln brand as number 3 in the survey. And also, I think the Ford brand was 11 or 12 in that survey, and in the top auto manufacturers. So a lot of progress on both the initial quality, the high mileage, as well as the appeals element of product quality.
Benny, talk a little bit about Ford. Of course, hey, very large company, multinational company. You have locations all over the world. So talk a little bit about how you drive quality and how you have a culture of quality that you share across the very broad platform of your company. How do you communicate those messages, and how do you make sure that everyone's aligned with the message of quality throughout Ford?
Well, we have a basic quality operating system that we believe that when followed, it enhances our probability of success and helps us deliver defect vehicles to our customers. And whether we start from the shop floor to the top of the house, one of the key things that we think is critical to the success of maintaining the quality operating system is a constancy of purpose around learning, teaching, and applying the methodologies that are espoused in the quality operating system. And my organization does quite a bit of learning, of teaching of the quality operating systems and the standards and procedures that we have around the world. I mean, in an organization as large as Ford is, there has to be a commitment from the top leadership in the company, whether it be our unions, whether it be our senior management, and I'm fortunate as the quality leader at Ford to have that from both sides, and that makes it easier for us to get the job done.
Hey, Bernie, we only got a little bit of time left here, so maybe quickly, if you could give us kind of a real example, maybe of in terms of maybe new product releases. What was one of the toughest issues your team had to tackle? Maybe either you personally or your team. What do you think was? Give us an example of how this quality methodology and quality from throughout the organization, how that was used to tackle a tough issue.
Well, I think probably the toughest issues that we probably had to deal with in the last 5 or 6 years that I've been on this job is the release of My Ford Touch. When you think about what we're offering to the customers in terms of features, content, and really bringing that technology, which was usually reserved for luxury customers, into the masses, we decided that we were going to be leaders in technology, and that was our first introduction. And if I think about that software release, that was 7 million lines of code that we released in order to bring that technology and all the features that you have right at your fingertips or at a voice command to be able to use is probably the largest challenge that we face. And I think that we've learned a lot from the introduction of My Ford Touch in terms of from the design to the manufacture to really the handover to the customers in terms of explaining and making the product more intuitive. Those are things that we've learned from listening to the voice of the customer and really bringing that technology to life. So I think, you know, in the software game, which is only limited by the imagination of what man can think about using software, it probably is it's an example of one of the technologies that's offered the greatest challenge to us as an organization.
Well, Bennie, thank you again for joining us. That's the time that we have, but we really appreciate you joining us again. Bennie Fowler there of the Ford Motor Company. Bennie, we're going to see you again down the road, and we'll be talking more about quality at Ford and communicating that to our audience in the future. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you later.
Well, thank you very much, and it's time, if you haven't been in the showroom to buy a Ford or Lincoln, it's time to do that. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely. I'm due for a new car.
Thanks, Bennie. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, fantastic.
Thanks, Bennie.
Bye-bye.
Great interview with Bennie Fowler.
Bennie
Ford.
Fowler, yeah, Bennie Fowler, really good guy, and has some good insights into quality.
Yeah, it's nice for the folks at Ford to take some time away from their busy schedules and just join us on our show here for a few minutes.
Absolutely. So thanks to Bennie for that.
Yeah. Well, recently I bought some bar stools from IKEA, and as you know, anything from IKEA is some assembly required.
Just a little.
Now, as good as IKEA's directions are, and they are really good, there is always the issue of orienting the drawings to the workpiece. You know, understanding which step in the drawing goes with which picture. Do I have the picture upside down in relationship to the thing I'm trying to work on? So now imagine yourself on the factory floor with a large, complex assembly. Pictorial instructions are great, and most large assemblies do have pictorial instructions, but the same basic issues are still there. How do you orient your instructions? Are you using the right instruction for the step that you're on? Does the picture line up with what you see in front of you? Well, if you're doing something, if you want really the ultimate in assembly, really what you'd want is your instructions to appear on your assembly in real time. And that's exactly the technology we're going to talk about right now. We have Roger Richardson, CEO of Delta Sigma, on Skype with us today. Hello, Roger.
Hello, Mike. Hello, Dirk.
Hey, how you doing? So you have developed a technology that projects assembly instructions onto the workpiece. Do I have that right?
That's correct. We take in the 3D geometry from whatever is the CAD package that you would use, and then that can be broken down and then projected step by step actually onto the parts as you assemble.
So what I see behind you, it looks like I'm seeing some actual text. I can't quite read it, but I'm assuming that's the actual instructions. And there's some dots. What am I seeing there?
Well, in this particular case, it would be fastener installations. So it'd be showing you a part number and a quantity, and then the location of that particular part number.
So not only do I have the instructions, you're actually showing me where those little dots are actually showing the operator where the fasteners actually go?
That's correct. So and things that would have an orientation, we would show what the orientation of that part is. So in the case of a fastener, there's not an orientation, just a placement that this is the place that it goes. But if there were an orientation, then it would show that as well.
Okay. Now, if you were to move this part, you know, you have it set up right there. You've got this projection system that's projecting this onto there. If you were to bump the part or move it, would the projection track with it?
Well, right now, to get the projector into the coordinate system of this part, it's about a 1-minute process to calibrate the projector into the coordinate system of the part. Presently, that would not happen. What you just said, you would have to recalibrate. It would take about a minute. You would be back up and running again. We do have working in the lab, though, a version that actually does do that, and that will be available for release later this year. But today, we're not quite there. That software is not quite ready to hit the street yet, but should be within the next 4 or 5 months, I would say.
Okay. Now, you know, I've seen or heard of similar technologies that use laser projection to I'm guessing, do something similar. How does your optical system differ from, let's say, a laser-based system?
Well, lasers they do a terrific job of making lines, but with a laser, there's just one little small dot, and then you've got mirrors that are moving that dot rapidly around. So the retention of your retina will make it appear to be a line. You don't see it as a moving dot, you see it as a line, unless you try to move that too far, so that the time that it takes to wrap back around to the beginning is longer than your retina retains that. So when you're looking at a laser projection that's trying to display very much at a time, you see it start to blink. And if you get too much out there, the blinking is so much that the line or the text is not there for such a large percentage of the time that it's really difficult to read. And of course, a laser is only going to be one color. So with optical projection, so it works the same way as everybody has seen PowerPoint projected. There's no blinking. You can have as much text as you want. You can have as many colors as you want. The thing that's different here is that we've now created a way to project that three-dimensionally. So all of the features that you ever have had in a projector are the same. It's just that now we're not limited to a 2D screen. We actually can wrap around the shape of whatever it is you're making.
Well, Roger, we're going to have to go pretty quickly here, but before we do, I want to mention to everyone out there that we have a webinar on this topic next Tuesday, the 26th. That's going to be at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Can you give us just a real quick preview of what we're going to see, how we're going to dive into this a little bit deeper on Tuesday?
Sure. Well, we'll start off with a PowerPoint for a few minutes, just kind of go over the features and benefits of the system, and then we will have a live demonstration where we'll be showing lots of different capabilities and ways that the projection work system would be used to enhance a quality management system by providing instructions and inspection methods that are different. I mean, you have a different capability when you can put the instructions so close to the person's eyes and hands where they're already working, that the new kinds of doors that opens in ways that you can use such a technology.
Well, Roger, thanks for joining us today. We are going to have to take off, but obviously we will join you. You and I'll be hosting, and you'll be presenting this webinar next week on Tuesday. So thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so long, Roger.
Thank you, Roger. Yes, again, that is this Tuesday coming up, the 26th of February at 11 a.m. Pacific. You can see it right there, 2 p.m. Eastern. There's a link right below your player page, and you can sign up right now if you'd like, or later today for the webinar. It's going to be a good one. Dirk will host, Roger will present, and you're going to get a really good deep look at this system that Roger was just talking about. Okay, we're going to move on now, and we have a wow, excuse me.
You want a glass of water?
Dirk, why don't you tell us what we're going to be seeing in Tech Corner?
As Mike dies on the side here, live in living color. So what Mike was trying to say is our Tech Corner today has everything to do about color. Now, you may have noticed that Mike and I are wearing slightly mismatched color shirts. This is due to something called metamerism, and metamerism failure, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. So we all know how very important it is if you're trying to establish a brand, either a corporate brand or a product brand. Color is very important. We've talked about this on the show. In fact, we've even shown a product like this. This happens to be a color checker from X-Rite. This is the RM200, or also known as a capture. You can also use a spectrophotometer, and these are quantitative devices. These kind of devices actually measure the spectral response of the light being reflected off a material. And as good as that is, the problem with it is that it's not human. And human eyes do not perceive color the same way as an instrument does. And this is really important because, as they say in the industry, the eyes buy. It's the eyes that determine the actual color differences and how pleasant a color is or whether colors match. So it's really important that you go beyond quantitative analysis and you really do a qualitative analysis. And if you're going to do that, you need a product like this. This is the Spectralite QC, also from X-Rite. This is a calibrated light booth. It has several different sources of light in here, all to kind of mimic the different types of lighting situations you might see in real life. different types of fluorescent, different types of incandescent. It also can be customized with other types of light sources. We happen to have a standard unit here, and I'll run through that in a little bit. But this allows the operator to examine color the way a human being examines color, which is under specific lighting conditions. And let me just show you a little bit what this looks like. So if we go to our gauge cam here, I'll just show you what we've got going here. Right now, we happen to be looking at what am I under? A type of fluorescent light. This is called a U30 fluorescent light. This is a warm fluorescent light. This is something that is kind of favored by, let's say, retail stores because it has the benefits of being fluorescent, but it's much warmer than another type of fluorescent light, which I will go to right now. And that is a D65, which is a daylight balance light. Now notice when I did that, let the light equalize here, you notice we've gone kind of from a warm color to a very cold color. Now the camera is kind of accentuating this so you wouldn't see quite this drastic in real life. But essentially you're seeing what's going on. You're changing the color of the viewing field, and that definitely does change the color perception for these various things that I have established out here. So we can go to another type of light. Let's say we'll go to a European style light. We'll just stay on the gauge cam here. This is a European style fluorescent. You see it's not quite as cold as the D65 I just had. Let's go to an incandescent light. Okay. Now this incandescent is much warmer than, let's say, that warm fluorescent I showed at the very beginning. So again, you see this color shift. Another thing I want you to notice, if you look at the bottom of the blue pen down here, compare the bottom of that blue pen to the blue Post-it note that I have there. I want you to notice the differences in that color. Actually, not the color, but so much the shading when I go to a compact fluorescent. I'm going to switch to that now. And you'll notice that the pen got a little bit lighter, or maybe the paper got a little bit lighter. Anyway, the shading on those two got a little bit closer. It's subtle. It's a little bit more obvious if you're actually looking in the light booth where I'm at. But there definitely is a difference between the way those two colors match between the compact fluorescent light source and the UV light source. Now I'm going to show you another thing. I'm going to go back here to my U30 light. Another thing that happens is suppose your product's going to be viewed outside. So I'm looking at my product under this U30 fluorescent, and we're looking at my blue pen. Watch this blue pen as I turn on ultraviolet. You notice that blue pen just all of a sudden popped. Watch the blue pen. I'm going to turn it off. All I've done is turn a little bit of UV light on and off. Notice the rest of the colors don't change, but that blue pen does. That's because that blue pen, if we can come back to our wide camera here, if you look at that blue pen, it has got some fluorescent inks in the pigment in the plastic. So why is that important? Well, if your product's only going to be viewed in an office environment, maybe that's not important. But if you're looking for a color match between, let's say, a fabric and a piece of plastic, and they match in, let's say, your office environment or your retail environment, all of a sudden you take them outside and the UV light from the sun makes that plastic pop, now you've lost your color match. That's why it's important to have a visual look at what is going on with your colors. You want to make sure that they look like what you expect them to look like in all situations. Now, what we've been looking at right here, obviously, is a light booth. We can only put something of a certain size in here. Suppose we wanted to look at something much larger, like an automobile, or maybe a large piece of office equipment. Obviously, you can't cram it into here. This lid comes off. You got the booth portion, and you got all the guts, you got the smart stuff up here. You can actually suspend multiple units, let's say in a warehouse space. You could, let's say, take 20 of these, suspend them from the ceiling, and daisy chain them together. There's some connections here. Daisy chain them together and control them all from the front panel or from, as I'm doing right here, from a computer. So one unit would control all of them. Now you could drive, let's say, a car into your warehouse, light the entire vehicle. Think about it. A car's got plastic bumpers, probably manufactured by one manufacturer, plastic trim work manufactured by another manufacturer, and it's got metalwork and paint from yet another manufacturer. It comes into the factory floor, looks like everything matches just fine. The bumper matches the plastic trim, matches the doors. But you take it outside, and all of a sudden, whoa, it doesn't match. Well, this way now you have a way to drive a vehicle, light the whole thing, and now you make sure that your vehicle looks like in daylight what you would expect it to look like. Very important. Now, all of this is important, but it doesn't do you any good unless you have the same test setup no matter where you go. So for instance, this, as I mentioned, this is a calibrated light booth. These lights are set up, they're known intensities. The intensities can be adjusted in certain cases. The color temperature is known. It's all set up here for our particular test. You want your suppliers to be able to do exactly the same test so that they're making sure they're sending you with the product that you want. So if you had this booth over at your supplier, you could download all of your settings into a file, send that file to them, they would upload them into their Spectralite QC, and they would be able to perform exactly the same test that you're doing. So the moral of the story here, and X-Rite suggests this, spectrophotometers, color checkers, quantitative checking, that's important. And you need to do that sometimes in order to establish your formulations. But in the end, remember, it's the eyes that buy. You need a human being looking at your colors to make sure that your colors match and that they're the colors that you expect. And for that, you need a light booth. So, again, this is the Spectralite QC from X-Rite. If you want more information on it, if you go to the bottom underneath the player page, you will see a link that will take you to their website and actually to a specific page on their website that discusses this particular project.
Yep, there it is. Spectralite.
Spectralite QC.
QC from X-Rite.
And I tell you, this is really a good lesson because it's talking to the folks at X-Rite. It's interesting. He says there's a lot of information you get from a spectrophotometer, and it's very accurate, very detailed, and very specific to how much light's reflecting from where. But once you look at it with an eye, you may not be seeing what you're expecting to see.
That's right. So good tool right there. All right, check it out. Well, thank you. Thank you to X-Rite for giving us that great tech corner. And if you have a tech corner, as we always say, email us at qdl@qualitydigest.com. We'll get it on the air for you at an upcoming show. Okay. Well, one more thank you before we go. Before we close, I'd like to offer our thanks to this week's sponsor, Olympus America Incorporated. Discover another dimension in microimaging and metrology with test, measurement, inspection, and imaging instruments designed for high precision quality control and R&D. Olympus engineered solutions enhance quality and productivity in industrial markets around the world. For more information, visit online at www.olympus-ims.com or just click on the banner ad just below or just to the right of the player page right here. So thank you, Olympus America, for sponsoring today's show.
That's right. Okay, well, hey, a lot of you joined us for our premiere episode of Gauging Quality with Craig Howell, where we calibrated a surface plate, a granite surface plate. Coming up on March 7th, another Gauging Quality, this one with PQ Systems. We're going to be taking a look at the importance of software in maintaining your gauging, your system. In other words, do you know where your gauges are? Do you know if they've been calibrated? Do you know if they're coming up due for cal? Also eliminating transcription errors. When you're entering data, your gauging calibration data into a system, wouldn't it be nice if you just put it directly into your gauging software without having to, let's say, manually type it? So we'll be discussing those issues and more with Craig Howell, really from a user perspective. Kind of in the background, we'll be using the PQ Systems Gauge Pack software just to talk about how software will really kind of help you keep your gauging in control in your facility. So
Life of a Gauge.
Life of a Gauge. Show up on March 7th.
That's right, March 7th, and when we do all of our stuff, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. So check it out Thursday, March 7th. Another great episode of Gauging Quality with Dirk and Craig Howell. Okay, well, that's our show for the week. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Dirk, for wearing that great shirt. And I think later Dirk and I are
They match, right?
Yeah,
well, sort of.
Kind of.
Okay, so I told them I was going to give them a lesson in metamerism. Okay, so when Mike and I, came to the office today, we chose our shirts, and we thought under fluorescent light that our shirts actually matched.
Yes.
Well, as you can see, under incandescent light, they don't.
They don't.
That is metamerism failure. There you go. There's your color lesson for the day.
That's right.
It's great.
And later we're going to play around on the green screen and disappear totally.
And we'll disappear completely.
That's right. So that'll be fun. All right. Well, thank you again all for joining us. We want you to all have a great week. Join us next week on this show. Dirk actually won't be here, but I will. And join us on Monday for another week of QD. So we'll see you then.
So long.
Bye.
Fowler.